You believed him, trusted him, built your life with him, and then it happened. Not with a scream, not with a fight, quietly, invisibly. A phone screen lighting up in the dark, a message he shouldn't have sent, and everything you thought you knew about him, about love, about safety, quietly changes shape. Most people assume cheating means the marriage failed, that you weren't enough, but research tells a different story. The majority of affairs happen in marriages that look almost perfect from the outside, which raises a question that doesn't leave you. Why would a man risk everything, his family, his home, his children, when nothing was actually wrong? The answer isn't simple, because there isn't one type of man who does this. There are six different psychologies, 6 different things happening in his brain, 6 completely different reasons. And at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you the one moment every single one of them shared. Not the affair. Something that happened before it. Something that changes everything once you understand it. The mistake most people make is assuming all cheating men are the same. They're not. And that difference matters. Because understanding which type he was is the only way to stop asking what was wrong with you. There wasn't something wrong with you. There was something wrong with him. And it looked completely different depending on who he was. The first type measures love in actions. He shows up, he provides, he fixes what breaks. By every external measure, he is doing everything right. And yet, in the quiet moments, he feels completely invisible. One man described it this way: I did everything I was supposed to do, and I still felt completely unseen. That feeling, invisible despite doing everything right, is where the psychological pathway begins. Here is what is happening in his brain. Dr. John Gottman's research on emotional bids shows that when a person's attempts at connection go unacknowledged repeatedly, the brain begins to reroute, not consciously, not as a decision, as a biological response to deprivation. Feeling seen lights up the same part of the brain as pleasure. When that stops happening at home, the brain starts scanning elsewhere, quietly, automatically, looking for what it stopped receiving. He isn't searching for someone better. His brain is running an acknowledgement deficit, and it will accept that signal from wherever it arrives first. The moment someone outside the marriage notices him, not as the provider, not as the fixer, but as a person, his brain releases dopamine at a level his home life stopped producing years ago. He doesn't think, I am going to cheat. He thinks, she actually sees me. And by the time reason tries to intervene, the emotional reward is already in motion. That is not an excuse. It is a mechanism running quietly in the background, long before either of you noticed anything was wrong. The second type has spent his life being the man everyone points to as an example. Responsible, respected, the one who does things right. And this, his greatest strength, becomes the exact psychological trap that leads him here. Psychologists call it moral licensing. The mechanism works like this. When a person accumulates enough moral credit, enough sacrifice, enough good decisions, enough years of being dependable, the brain quietly begins to treat that credit as a currency it is owed the right to spend. The internal logic doesn't sound like betrayal. It sounds like, I have given so much. I have carried so much. I deserve one thing that is just mine. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's research on identity explains the next layer. People who build rigid public identities, the good husband, the respected man, don't eliminate the parts of themselves that identity cannot hold. They bury them, buried desires, buried resentment, buried parts of himself that his reputation has never allowed to exist. And buried psychological material doesn't disappear. It builds pressure until it finds a way out. The affair is that release. The most painful thing about this type is what happens after. He returns to being a good man almost immediately, because the shadow was never meant to be seen. It disappears back into the dark, while the respected version walks back into the light as if nothing happened. And that's why he can love you and still betray you. This type does not cheat out of desire. He cheats out of relief. Dr. Gabor Mate's research on avoidant attachment identifies a pattern that begins in childhood. When a child learns that expressing emotional need leads to rejection, withdrawal, or punishment, the nervous system adapts. It builds walls, not as a choice, as survival. The adult version of this person experiences deep emotional intimacy as a neurological stress response. His body reads vulnerability as danger, so he stays surface. He keeps things functional. He avoids the depth you've been reaching for. Not because he doesn't care, because his nervous system is trying to protect him from something it learned to fear long before he ever met you. The person he finds outside the marriage isn't more interesting, isn't more attractive. She simply asks nothing of him emotionally. And for a nervous system wired to treat intimacy as threat, nothing asked feels like the first breath of air after. Years of holding it in. He didn't go looking for less. His brain went looking for somewhere it didn't have to be afraid. When did you first feel like you were the only one trying? If you know the exact moment, you already understand this type better than he ever did. 3 types. The man who needed to be seen. The man who felt he'd earned it. The man who was afraid to get close. And somewhere in those 3, something probably landed, not as information, as recognition. The next 3 go deeper, because these last 3 types aren't running from something, they're running toward something, and that difference changes everything. This type didn't fall out of love. He stopped feeling anything at all, not dramatically. Slowly. Research on long-term emotional suppression reveals a pattern called hedonic adaptation. When a person consistently numbs conflict, avoids difficult conversations, and stays in a life that feels wrong but manageable, the brain's reward system begins to flatline. He isn't sad, he isn't angry, he is flat. And a brain wired for survival will seek stimulation when it has been deprived of feeling for long enough. The affair isn't about the other person. It is about sensation, any sensation, the adrenaline of something new, something risky, something that reminds his nervous system it is still alive. He doesn't leave, because the affair gives him just enough stimulation to keep tolerating the numbness at home. That is not love. That is a man using your life as a waiting room. This type's brain treats relationships like achievements. Once familiar, they no longer spike dopamine. Dr. Robert Sapolsky's research on novelty and reward shows that high-achieving brains are structurally wired for what comes next. Career, status, goal, next. The same circuits that made him driven made him incapable of staying satisfied. He married you at his best, then kept climbing. The bigger he got, the more familiar you felt. And familiar stopped producing the signal his brain runs on. He didn't cheat because the marriage failed. His brain filed you under known, and known stopped firing. You didn't lose him to someone better. You lost him to a brain that was never built to stay. Here is what nobody says out loud. He will do this again, to her too. Because the architecture doesn't change. The brain that needed novelty once still needs it. It is not personal. It was never personal. That is the most brutal part. This is the type that breaks people completely. Because everything was fine. He loves you. He chose this life. He would choose it again. And he still did it. He wasn't running from the marriage. He was addicted to a version of himself that only existed in secret. Dr. Esther Perel describes it this way. For some people, the affair is not about the other person at all. It is a relationship with a hidden self, the version of him that is untamed, unrecognized, alive only in stolen moments when no one who knows him is watching. His nervous system became addicted to the neurochemical combination of risk and reward, dopamine from anticipation, adrenaline from danger, relief from near discovery. 2 phones, 2 versions of the same life, the constant tension of keeping them from ever touching. That edge, the heartbeat before almost getting caught, was where his nervous system felt most alive. He loves you. That was never the question. The question that keeps you up at night is different. Can someone love you completely and still need a secret self more than they need the truth? What? Yes. And that is the hardest thing in this entire video. 6 types, 6 psychologies, 6 completely different stories. But there is one moment, one specific moment, that every single one of them shared. Not the affair. There is always a moment before the line gets crossed. A message typed, not yet sent. A decision forming, not yet made. A threshold, visible, real, fully understood, standing directly in front of him. And in that moment, every single one of these men felt the full weight of what he was risking. Your face, his children, everything built together. And then he went quiet inside, not panicked, not tortured, quiet, like something turned off. Psychologists call this moral disengagement, the moment the brain selectively deactivates the emotional centers that would have stopped him. He knew, he cared, right up until the silence. And then the silence decided. Every type, every psychology, every different story, the same silence, the same choice, the same person left holding the damage. You. Betrayal does something specific to the mind. It makes you go back through every ordinary moment, every dinner, every conversation, every Tuesday that felt like nothing, looking for the mistake you must have made. There was no mistake. The man who needed to be seen, that was never yours to feel alone. The man who buried his shadow, that was never yours to know existed. The man who feared closeness, that was never yours to cure. The man who went numb, that was never yours to feel on his behalf. The man whose brain chased novelty, that was never yours to outrun. The man with a hidden self, that was never yours to compete with. None of it was yours. If this video helped you understand something you've been carrying, subscribe. Every week, we go deeper into the psychology behind the relationships that shaped you. And if this reached you tonight, like it. It will reach someone else who needs it just as much. And remember, understanding why he did it will never hurt less. But it will, eventually, stop feeling like your fault. It was never your fault.